Movement, peace, love, respect. Big King Sadiq hollering at you one more again. Alright, this is a quick one. We're going to dive right in. And the subject matter is interesting. And it calls for expansive thought, right? Alright, so we're going to call this one Higher Dimensional Agreements. Alright. So, the reason I'm making this video, well, there's a lot of reasons, but the reason I'm specifically making this video is because we've got to begin to think in different terms, right? This ain't all just for talk. Folks, this is real deal. This is real. This is more than real talk. This is existence, right? And we need to start to really not just talk and let it rest, here, right? Because when you talk about something, you kick an idea back around, you got it in your head, right? You're kicking it around in your mind. There's some activity in your brain going on, right? But it needs to go further than right here, right? You need to bring it down your chakra ladder, so to speak, right? And it needs to resonate in your heart chakra, because that's where it picks up energy in the great engine, right? Your electromagnetic center, right? That's where you put your energy behind it. So we need to really start to change a little bit or tweak the way that we perceive how we operate, right? Folks, I'm not just kicking around playful concepts when I say that you are a multi-dimensional being of free will, right? You exist quantumly in multiple dimensions, right? And the beautiful thing is the mainstream science world is getting closer and closer by the minute to just verifying all that, right? The old paradigms of thought, the old limitations, the old laws of physics, right, are beginning to fall by the wayside. And listen, that is the premise again of science. Science is not stagnant, right? We don't learn something and say, oh, we got the know-all, be-all, right? We know everything, we're done learning. This is what it is. There's never a this is what it is, because what it is always changing, right? Always expanding. There's always more for us to know, right? So we have to broaden the way we're thinking, folks. Broaden our perception, right? So we've talked again previously about the fact that we know scientifically matter and energy cannot be destroyed, right? Matter and energy cannot be destroyed. In fact, we're also getting closer to the point of, well, in some circles, it's already confirmed that energy, right, is actually everything. Everything is energy, right? Even matter is simply energy slowed down to a solidified state, right? So we have to understand that we are not these diminishing, these short shelf life. There's a tongue twister, right? Excuse me. We are not these beings of a short shelf life, right? We have a physical life expectancy, right? And that can be greatly increased with the omission of toxins and the addition of all the superfoods and healthy things that you should be taking in, right? Clean, fresh water. Again, all these toxins out of it. But anyway, we have to broaden the way that we think. We're not going to just die and cease to exist, right? Whether you manifest again in a physical corporeal life or not is irrelevant. You shall still exist, right? And anyone who has found a way to destroy matter or energy, chime in and let me know. Because as far as I'm aware, those are two things that we know cannot be destroyed, only altered in state, right? So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about human beings, people, humans, man and woman, right? We're made up of energy and matter, slowed down energy. We are, and I'm being very scientifically, sort of vague, skimming over the whole matter is energy slowed down thing, but that's a whole nother conversation. You physics cats, y'all have that side conversation. For right now, yeah, we do need to understand, though, that we are made up of things that cannot be destroyed. So we are eternal, right? You are eternal. You will not exist you will not cease to exist. You may change your existence, right? In fact, your existence will always change, right? Change is the one constant, the one thing we can count on. And it only makes sense because existence is ever expanding, right? So expansion calls for change. Okay. Well, I want us to start to think as eternal, immortal beings and to develop our perceptions and concepts from that point on. Now, I say I want. I'd like to see, right? This is a state of perception that I'm continually in, right? I am able to grasp and utilize duality. So, though I may be always perceiving things on one level from an immortal, eternal standpoint, I'm always able to reference it from my mortal set of senses, right? But yeah, the fact of the matter is, we are immortal. And we are, in fact, multi-dimensional, right? And the more you understand about dimensional science, the more you understand how plain and clear that is, that we are, in fact, multi-dimensional beings, right? But I don't want to get too much into the science or the debate or the fact that we are multi-dimensional beings. I think we've covered that fairly adequately in previous videos. But in this one specifically, I wanted to talk a little bit about the fact that as immortal, multi-dimensional beings, we make agreements, right? We know each other on a higher dimensional state, right? And we have this view of ourselves living our corporeal lives as though it's some accidental result from a physical bump at the hips. That's not what's going on here, folks, right? In most instances, unless otherwise impacted by karma or other cosmic forces, we'll say. Unless otherwise impacted, we always elect these lives, right? We select these lives. We choose to incarnate into the body, into the life, the lifetime that we live. We as spirits are able to look at the... Here's another thing. You've got to grasp the concept of timelessness, right? The past, the present, the future all exist at once, right? A lot of folks who have stuck a toe in the waters of quantum physics probably are shaking their heads right now, like, yeah, you know, because that's the fact of the matter. It's what we've uncovered. That we in fact do exist dually in this way. I don't know if dually is the right word, because it sounds like I'm saying D-O-O-L-E-Y, like dually. I don't know what the heck that even is. And really I'm referring to duality, right? But yeah, we have agreements that we make amongst one another as we are selecting our corporeal life, right? The lifetime that we are going to incarnate into. And many of us, believe it or not, form teams, so to speak, right? And then we go and incarnate, right? So you form a team, you imagine this, right? Visualize it, rather. It's not imagination. Visualize this physically, because it's a process that you take on spiritually, right? So, in spirit form, right? Once again, we're able to view lifetimes in their entirety, which is the only realistic view, because again, the past, the present, the future all exist at once. Time is a machination, for lack of a better description, right? But that's a whole nother video. We'll put that on the list to do a deep video on time and what it is and where it comes from. And we'll have to get really deep on that one. We'll start talking about Saturn and yeah, we'll Chronos and all that. That's a whole nother video. But understanding that concept, visualize the fact that you are selecting your lifetime. And, again, we know each other, right? We're not strangers. In fact, the higher you go on a dimensional, in terms of a dimensional plane of existence, the more sense of oneness there is. Okay? So that should make, in that context, it should make sense that we intimately know each other, right? And again, often we do form teams, right? To accomplish a specific task or goal. Could be simply to aid each other in completing our process of spiritual maturity through our physical incarnations, right? But yeah, there are multiple reasons why we do it, and a multitude of ways that plays out. But some of these things show up in our lives in some very interesting ways. All right, peace, love, respect. For example, we all have heard of or have some concept of a guardian angel. Now, certainly, the angelic hosts aid us greatly, right? Most of which in ways that we don't realize or know. But a lot of what we would attribute to a guardian angel is actually you. It's actually your higher dimensional self helping yourself along. Or it could be the product of a higher dimensional agreement between you and another spirit, right? That could be your spiritual teammate. True that. That could literally be your spiritual teammate, right? Also, that can look differently. These agreements aren't always played out as teams in terms of spirits that are in roles that are beneficial to each other. Sometimes spirits know that they are going to incarnate into physical lifetimes and live roles that clash with one another, right? You may know that if I incarnate into a certain life and you incarnate as a certain person in that life, you know, you may be incarnating as someone who brings great pain and misery to me. But as spirits, we understand that this isn't quote unquote real. Or at least we understand that this is certainly not the extent of existence at all, right? Not at all. And we may make that agreement because that great pain, that suffering, that harm, as we perceive it physically on this plane of existence, actually may be of great benefit to us in terms of spiritual maturity, right? Remember, from some of my earlier videos, I talked about how we have good times and bad times in life, but they're all really just experiences that are there for us to grow and learn. And many times, the toughest experiences to go through, the most painful experience to go through, often have embedded within them the greatest lessons and the most beneficial lessons for us to learn in terms of spiritual maturity, right? So that's important to understand. And we understand all of this intricately on a spiritual level. That's why we embark on these missions that we call lifetimes, right? And during these lifetimes, again, often we form agreements or partnerships for very important reasons, right? And that plays out in one way or another in our physical lives. So understand that, you know, as much as we feel separate, right, from one another, and as much as we live in a society and a paradigm that emphasizes separatism, right, separation mentality, I like to call it, versus what I would entreat upon folks, which is unity consciousness, right, unity awareness. But yeah, that is what we are dealing with, is that many times on a spiritual level, we make these agreements for very, very profound and important reasons. And it often has to do with our spiritual maturity, which is, again, the point of all of this, right? Okay, I think we did it again. We kept it moving on what? Worldwide movement. Peace, love, respect. Big King Sadiq. I'm out.